My dad told me he never wanted me, and he said it like he was ordering coffee. I was 16 when he said it, standing in our kitchen with the morning sun cutting a hard line across the counter. He didn't shout. He didn't flinch. He just looked at the calendar where my name was scribbled under, tuition payment due, and he exhaled through his nose like he was tired of a bill. I didn't ask for this, he said. I didn't ask for you. Then he went to work. People think rejection is loud. In my house, it was quiet. My mom folded laundry as if each shirt might break in her hands. I learned early that silence can bruise. I grew up, worked 2 jobs, and carried my own weight. When people asked about my father, I said he was around. It was easier to lie in 1 word than tell the truth in 1,000. Years pass fast when you measure them in rent payments and empty birthdays. I moved into a tiny studio near the river, the kind with a window that sticks in August. I stocked shelves at night and edited wedding videos on weekends, because videography was the only way I could hold stories without dropping them. On Sundays, I visited Mom, brought groceries, changed light bulbs, and checked the smoke alarm. We didn't talk about him much. Sometimes we didn't need to. Some names make the air heavier. 2 weeks before his 60th birthday, I found out he was throwing a party. Not from him, of course. From a photo my cousin posted, a glossy black and gold invitation with a cursive, Daniel, 60 years loved. Loved. I laughed at that, the kind of laugh you do into your sleeve so it doesn't sound like a cry. The caption said, family only. Formal. Family only. I stared at those words until they looked wrong, until family felt like a word you can buy in bulk. Mom was washing dishes when I showed her the post. She went very still, the way she does when she's deciding whether to tell me a hard thing. He called, she said softly. A few days ago. He asked if if we could keep some distance. He didn't want awkwardness at his party. The plate in her hands trembled. I took it from her and set it on the rack. He said that. She nodded. I'm sorry, sweetie. It's funny, the way your heart can split into 2 people when you're hurt. One part sits down and stares at the floor. The other part gets busy, like a storm that believes in to-do lists. I cleaned the counter. I rearranged the spice rack. I asked Mom what she needed from the store, even though we both knew we had everything. On the bus back to my studio, the city looked like it always does, strangers with earbuds, buildings with lit windows, a dog on a balcony barking at nothing. I tried to let the world be bigger than one man's party. But the words stuck, family only. It wasn't about cake or speeches. It was about belonging, and he had stamped rejected on my file without reading it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my old external hard drives from a shoebox under the bed. Clients' backups, personal footage, things I hadn't watched in years. Most people stack their memories in albums, I stacked mine in folders with dates. I knew there was something I wanted to find, though I couldn't have told you what. Not yet. Maybe I just needed proof I'd existed in that house as more than a bill on a calendar. I made tea and opened the first drive. The desktop light made a small circle on the desk, like a stage for a single actor. I clicked through folders, 2009, school fair. 2010, Mom's birthday. 2011, choir concert. I paused at one called Garage, Winter. I didn't remember naming it. I hesitated, the cursor blinking like a held breath. Then I double-clicked. The folder opened into a line of grainy clips, all dated the winter I turned 16. The thumbnails were gray and cold, little squares of our garage with the metal shelves and the dented freezer. I hovered over the first one. I didn't press play. Instead, I closed the window. I wasn't ready to watch my house in winter yet. I walked to the window and looked at the river. The moon was in it, shaky, like a coin at the bottom of a glass. I thought about the invitation again. Family only. The words were a locked door. The more I stood there, the more I felt the key in my pocket, something I hadn't carved yet, but could. The next morning, I went to Mom's. She was ironing his old shirts for donation. The iron hissed, the board creaked, and the room smelled like starch and apology. "Don't iron those," I said. She looked up. "They're just shirts." "They're his," I said. Then, softer, "You don't have to keep doing this." She set the iron down. "It's habit." We made coffee and sat at the small table with the chipped edge. I told her I'd seen the invitation details through a cousin's post. I told her the words hurt in a small, mean way, the way sand hurts when it gets under your nail. "I could skip it," I said. "Let them have their night." She turned the mug in her hands. "You won't respect yourself in the morning." I smiled at that. "You know me too well." "You're not a scandal," she said. "You're my child." She didn't cry. She just spoke very steady, and somehow that broke me more than tears. I reached for her hand. "I'm going to his party," I said. "But not to start a fire." She raised an eyebrow. "To do what then?" "To tell the truth," I said. "And to leave with the part of me he never got to own." I spent the next day working and planning and working. I checked the venue tag on the invitation photo, then looked up the floor plan online. I mapped the room in my head: stage, screen, DJ table, a quiet corner with plants. I booked a suit from a rental shop, dark and simple. I booked a car, because I didn't want to arrive smelling like the bus. I called a friend who ran the A/V company, the kind of friend who owes you for the time you edited his sister's wedding for free. "I need a minute on a screen," I said. "Corporate party." "Family," I said. He whistled. "Tight window." "You get me a file, clean audio, I'll find you an HDMI." I thanked him. I kept my voice even, but my hands shook when I hung up. Not because of the logistics. Because of the question that had been tapping at the back of my mind since last night: what was I going to show? What proof would speak for me when my own voice had been filed under awkwardness? That evening, I pulled cash from my emergency envelope. It felt like I was paying for a bridge I couldn't yet see. Rent was due in a week, but sometimes you invest in air and trust that it will become a road. Back in my studio, I set the hard drives on the desk again. I opened the winter folder. The first clip loaded, the little wool turning. My finger hovered over the space bar. "Okay," I said to no one. "Let's see who we were." I pressed play. The video opened with the sound of wind through the garage door gap, soft and hollow. The camera was propped on a workbench, pointed toward my dad and me. I must have set it up to record while we cleaned that day. I used to film random stuff for fun, before editing turned into my job. He was fixing the snow blower, sleeves rolled up, radio humming in the background. I was in the corner, wiping down old boxes, asking him questions that only teenagers ask when they're still trying to be seen. "Dad, did you ever want to do something else? Like, besides work?" He didn't look up. "Work is what you do when you stop having options." I laughed nervously in the video. "So, you never thought about quitting?" He glanced over then, eyes sharp, voice calm. "You can't quit what you never wanted in the first place." I remember that moment now, how I'd forced a grin, pretending I didn't hear it right. But watching it years later, I could hear it clearly. The tone. The dismissal. The kind that doesn't leave bruises, just spaces inside you. Then, off camera, Mom's voice, younger, lighter: "Daniel, stop. He's trying to talk to you." He sighed, turned to her, muttering, "You coddle him too much. He's not my responsibility anymore." I did my part. That last line hit like a hammer. Not because it was new, but because now, it was proof. Captured. Archived. He couldn't erase it with charm or small talk anymore. I paused the clip. My breath came fast. The clock on my wall ticked too loudly. I saved the file under a new name, garage_winter_proof.mp4. The next morning, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in a while, Aunt Lynn. She was the one relative who'd never taken sides, just quietly drifted away when things got ugly. When she answered, her voice sounded surprised and cautious. "Ethan. Everything okay?" "I just need to ask," I said. "Did you know Dad was throwing a birthday party?" A pause. "I heard something, yes. He wanted it private. Family only," I said. Another pause. "I'm sorry, honey. Don't be. I'm going anyway." Her tone softened. "Does your mom know?" "She does." "And what do you plan to do?" I hesitated. "Remind him of what family means." She sighed. "Just promise me something. Don't fight him in front of everyone. He hates losing control." I smiled faintly. "I know. That's why I'm not giving him the chance." After the call, I walked to the river again. The water looked heavy and slow, carrying leaves like tiny boats. I imagined the party, the toast, the fake laughter, the people who'd never known what he was like at home. I thought of that clip, his words, clear as glass. For years, he'd told everyone I was distant, ungrateful, too sensitive. I used to believe maybe he was right. But truth, when you play it back, has a different sound. That night, I edited the clip, cut it clean, adjusted the levels, added a date stamp in the corner. No music, no fancy transitions. Just a quiet title card at the end, asterisk happy 60th, Dad. From the son you didn't want, asterisk. When I finished, I sat back in my chair, exhausted but calm. The city outside had gone quiet. For the first time, I didn't feel like a rejected file in someone else's system. I felt like a story about to be told. And the world was going to listen. The night of the party arrived with the kind of calm that feels planned, the sky too clear, the air too polite. I wore the suit I'd rented, pressed until it looked like it belonged to someone richer. The driver dropped me a block away from the hotel. I didn't want to be announced, I wanted to appear. Inside, the ballroom glowed with chandeliers and old laughter. My father always liked looking generous under soft light. He stood near the stage in a tailored navy suit, surrounded by people who still thought he was charming. I spotted Mom sitting in a back corner. She wasn't supposed to come, but she had that quiet courage that shows up anyway. When our eyes met, she gave me the smallest nod. That was all I needed. I walked in steady, ignoring the whispers. A few relatives blinked like they'd seen a ghost wearing polished shoes. I kept my hands in my pockets until I reached the edge of the crowd. Dad noticed me mid-sentence, a glass of champagne in his hand. His smile faltered just enough to tell the truth. "Ethan," he said, voice thin. "I didn't expect." "I know," I said. "You didn't want me here." A few heads turned. A ripple moved through the guests like someone had opened a window. Dad's eyes tightened. "This isn't the time." "It never was," I said quietly. "But I brought you a gift." He frowned. "Don't make a scene." "Then you should have invited me." Before he could reply, I glanced at the A/V table. My friend caught my eye and gave a small nod. The ballroom lights dimmed, the projector screen behind the stage flickered to life. The video began. At first, the guests smiled, expecting a tribute, baby pictures, milestones, speeches. But then the garage appeared, winter gray, and my father's voice filled the room. Asterisk, you can't quit what you never wanted in the first place. Asterisk. People froze. You could feel the air fold in on itself. Then Mom's younger voice, asterisk, Daniel, stop. He's trying to talk to you. Asterisk. And finally, that one line, asterisk, he's not my responsibility anymore. Asterisk. Silence. Not the kind that fades, the kind that stares back. My father's face drained of color. He set his glass down, the clink echoing in the stillness. Someone near the front whispered, "Is that real?" I stepped forward. "That was me at 16, I said. Trying to talk to my dad. He told me he never wanted me. And he spent years pretending otherwise." He took a slow breath, searching for his composure. "This is manipulative," he said. "You're twisting things." "Am I?" I asked. "Because that camera didn't twist your mouth." He looked around, desperate to gather allies, but no one moved. Even Aunt Lynn stood back, eyes wide. Mom had tears running silently down her cheeks, not out of shame, but relief, like the truth had finally come up for air. "Ethan," he said, voice trembling now, "you don't know what it's like to raise." "I know exactly what it's like to be raised by you," I cut in. "And I wouldn't wish it on anyone." He reached out, maybe to grab my arm, maybe to silence me, but I stepped back. "You taught me one thing, though," I said. "You taught me that silence helps the liar, not the truth." Then I turned to the guests. "Enjoy the party. The rest of you deserve to know the man you're celebrating." I walked out before anyone could stop me. Behind me, I heard the faint crack of a glass shattering, someone calling my name, the hum of whispers trying to make sense of it. Outside, the night air felt cold and clean. I pulled off my tie, loosened my collar, and let the city noise swallow the last of his voice. But as I reached the car, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. Just one text, "Come back inside." Something happened. I froze on the sidewalk, her message glowing against the dark. For a second, I thought it might be a trick of light, that my phone had glitched. But the words were steady, "Come back inside." Something happened. When I re-entered the ballroom, the crowd had thinned into hushed clusters. The birthday banners still hung, but the celebration was gone. My father was sitting at a table near the stage, shoulders slumped, the perfect navy suit looking too heavy on him. Mom stood a few steps away, her hand resting lightly on a chair, like she was steadying herself. She looked at me and nodded toward him. He collapsed for a moment, she whispered. "Just shock, I think. He's okay." I hesitated, unsure if I should walk closer. He lifted his head and saw me. For the first time in my life, I didn't see anger or pride in his eyes. Just a quiet, brittle confusion, the look of a man suddenly aware that his version of the story no longer fits the room he's in. "You really did that," he said hoarsely. "You showed them." "I didn't do it to humiliate you," I said. "I did it so you'd finally hear me." He leaned back, pressing a hand to his chest. "You think this makes you strong?" "No," I said softly. "It just makes me free." He let out a long, unsteady breath. "You're your mother's son." I smiled faintly. "That's the best thing you've ever said to me." I didn't expect an apology. Men like him build walls, not bridges. But as I turned to leave, he said something so small I almost missed it. "I remember that day. The garage. I wasn't good at being a dad." I paused, not looking back. "Then be good at something else," I said. "Start there." Outside, the hotel lights cast a soft gold over the street. Mom caught up to me, wrapping her coat tighter. She didn't speak for a long time. We just stood there, watching taxis pass, the night thinning into something calm. Finally, she said, "He'll have to live with what he saw tonight." "So will I answered. She nodded, slipping her hand into mine. "But maybe now you can live lighter." I looked at her, realizing how much of her strength I'd borrowed all these years. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "I'm not," she said. "Truth is like oxygen. It burns at first, but it saves you." We said our goodbyes, and I walked the rest of the way home alone. The river was quiet, the city slowing into its own reflection. I reached my studio, kicked off my shoes, and sat by the window. My laptop was still open, the file sitting there, garage_winter_proof.mp4. I hovered over it for a moment, then renamed it one last time, Closure. Before shutting it down, I uploaded it to a private folder, not to share, just to keep. Proof, not of revenge, but of release. A week later, a small box arrived at my door. No return label, just my name in my father's handwriting. Inside was a single photo, me at 10, sitting on his shoulders at a park. On the back, he had written, "I wanted to. I just didn't know how." I stood there for a long time, the paper trembling in my hand. Then I placed it on my desk beside my camera, the same one that had caught the truth years ago. I poured myself some tea, turned on the river lights, and whispered to the empty room, "I forgive you, but I'm not going back." The cup steamed quietly, like an exhale after a storm. For the first time, peace didn't feel like surrender. It felt like choice. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories of Revenge Ember.